So a bunch of my friends have told me how organized and structured my Notion life setup is. But in this video, I actually wanted to make 3 points and clarify 3 misconceptions about why being productive is not necessarily equivalent to being successful or accomplished, whatever you may define success as. Point number 1 is that success is often not a function of productivity. Rather, it is a function of perseverance, passion, and skill. Now, sure, productivity can be a function of success in that it may help you achieve things in a more organized, structured manner, but it by no means is a prerequisite for success. Now, from my own experience, I do have friends who are not as productive or organized or structured, but are still able to get their assignments done on time and do them better than, say, rather me or my friends who are quote-unquote more productive or structured, which basically means that productivity and the obsession with productivity is not necessarily required for one to be able to succeed in any particular field. Yes, it is necessary to the extent that it may make things easier, but it by no means is a definite prerequisite. Now think about Parkinsons Law, which is basically that work expands itself to fill the time available for its completion, which is really counterintuitive because if you think about it, you may think that just because you have more time, you will get things done well ahead of time and get them done with a lot of buffer left for yourself. But in fact, the reverse might be true, and it is at least true in my own experience, wherein if I have an assignment due, say after 7 days, and I started right on the first day that it was assigned, I realized that I spent the entire 7 days in completing that. In contrast, when I have an assignment, say due in the next 3 days, and I started, just 3 days before it's due, I realized that I'm still able to complete the assignment on time and also understand it with the same level of understanding that I did for my previous assignments. And I'm by no means suggesting that we should do one thing or the other, but I'm just clarifying that being productive or organized or structured is not necessarily a prerequisite. And I'll keep on continuing to emphasize this again and again. It's funny because this reminds me of a video from College Humor that a friend actually sent me. And in this video, there is this working professional who has his life quote unquote all sorted, organized, and is by far the most productive individual you'll ever meet. He has a journal, he has an ergonomic chair, he has got it all figured out, he has even a system that reminds him to breathe every 5 minutes, he has a system, a reminder that tells him to look away from the screen every 10 minutes, and so on and so forth. But the problem is that while all these systems in the first place exist for him to not feel stressed, he's so stressed about managing these systems that actually detracts him from quote-unquote being successful in the first place. So, to belabor the point again, success is often a function of passion, perseverance, and skill, and not necessarily a function of productivity. The second point I'd like to make is that productivity only alleviates stress. That's about it. So being productive is founded on the perception that if you manage your time, attention, and energy well, you will create more time for yourself than is required. And in that time, you can pursue either leisurely activities or do more work than what is required, thereby increasing your productivity. Now, all of that is great, but we should not forget that the purpose of productivity in the first place is to help alleviate stress of time management, attention management, and energy management. And that's about it. We should not think about necessarily doing more work in the time that is made available to us, because that is not what productivity leads us to. Rather, that is a byproduct of what productivity actually serves the purpose for, which is to alleviate stress. And the time that we have freed for ourselves, we could use for literally any activity, be it relaxing, playing the guitar, going out to the gym, doing anything, not necessarily working. But if we obsess about working in the time that we have created for ourselves by being productive at the task that we do in the first place, that is where all problems begin, because that in fact further perpetuates stress of being more productive. And we're set on this treadmill of kind of being more and more productive, and that is not necessarily useful either in the short run and definitely not in the long run. In fact, an author, Austin Kleon, says, productivity is overrated. Just focus on doing the good work. Every day when you go to bed, think about whether you did the thing that gives your life meaning. And that's about it. Let's not stress about being productive, even when we're not, as long as we're doing the good work. Which leads me to my final point, that productivity is not always about getting more things done and getting them done quickly. Now, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, we're only getting about 1.4% more productive year by year, which is the lowest growth rate in the past 30 years. And yet, we're seeing that we are producing more productivity tools, and yet we have less and less to show for it. So, what happened? Well, the thing is that the traditional notion of productivity comes from the Industrial Revolution, wherein if you can produce more articles or more units of a good in lesser time, you're essentially increasing your efficiency and thereby, quote unquote, being more productive. But that is not necessarily the case in today's knowledge economy. In today's knowledge economy, the calculus of productivity is in fact much more complicated, and the slope at which you are being productive, or at least you think you're being productive, is not necessarily reflective of how productive you actually are. For today, we need more time to come up with deeper, more valuable insights rather than coming up with quick insights on the fly, which are often not that useful in the long run. In fact, Cal Newport, a professor of computer science at Georgetown University, talks about this concept of deep work, wherein he says that for 3 to 4 hours every day, if you're pushed to your intellectual limits and you're doing something that is constantly challenging you, that is much more valuable than just doing tasks on a regular basis without having this core chunk of time allotted to deep work in the first place. And in that time, you may feel that you're not making progress because you're not, quote unquote, breaking any barriers or discovering new things. But that is essentially the idea of eventually producing something that is of value. And even though I may feel that I'm not being productive in the time that I'm struggling with any particular problem, that is not the point. The point is that I'm struggling, and the point is that I'm growing at it. And that is what matters more than me just having this traditional notion of productivity embedded in my mind and trying to retrofit everything that I'm doing with that notion. And because that notion inherently is flawed and archaic, everything that I do will not be valuable, because today things require necessarily a different approach rather than just optimizing for how productive you can be with anything that you do. And I would say that this lesson more or less applies to me because my friends always tell me that I'm optimizing for something or the other. I guess that by saying this, I'm in fact reminding myself that I also need to at times slow down and not just see whether I'm being productive at every single moment, rather whether I'm contributing something valuable, which may require a longer gestation period. And that is in fact a piece of feedback that I also got from one of my friends, who told me that I should not focus on the fact that I have to produce a video, a podcast, and a newsletter issue every week. Rather, I should really question whether I'm synthesizing valuable thoughts and summarizing information and presenting it in an easy to understand manner every week, and only then that I'm producing a video, a podcast, or a newsletter. And that really got me thinking, because in this video I've substantially invested a lot more time than in any of my previous videos, and I can see how much more engaged I am in this particular video as compared to the ones that I produced before. So that was all that I had to say about anti-productivity. One was that success is not necessarily a function of productivity. 2, that productivity exists for reducing stress, and that's about it. And 3, that productivity is not always about getting more things done and getting them done quickly. Hope you liked this video, and please feel free to share any thoughts. Thank you.